Greetings and salutations. This is the voice of Loquacious of Herd, bringing you his afterthoughts on My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 6, Episode 10, titled Applejack's Day Off. And yes, I did just do air quotes around the word day. I heartily suggest that you find and watch the episode itself, sans commentary, before proceeding with either this Afterthoughts review or viewing my full reaction, which is hosted at the link in the description. Be warned, this Afterthoughts review will contain spoilers for the episode. With that out of the way, on to the review. With this episode, we have another enjoyable, laid-back, and low-impact slice-of-life tale to add to the season. No great progressions of character or of storylines, but a fun and rather familiar feeling revisiting of some of the main six dealing with a problem relating to their friendships. Specifically, Rarity enjoys spending some quality time with her friends while being pampered at the spa. As such, she sets up spa dates with many of them. It's one of the ways that they can stay in contact and have some much-needed relaxation in the midst of what seem to be their rather busy lives. Only it turns out that Applejack has begun to be less and less available for such fun and social gatherings. She started showing up quite late to her spa dates with Rarity, when she shows up at all. And while a pruny Rarity is one of the more horrifying products of the growing distance between Applejack and Rarity, the real issue is that Rarity and Applejack simply aren't hanging out as much anymore. This is a well-presented and highly relatable conflict. Life happens, schedules change, and suddenly it's been far too long since you've been spending fun times with good friends. If left unchecked, friendships can begin to drift apart. And when it comes to such friendships as the main six enjoy, this simply can't be allowed to happen. The reason for this, as Applejack remarks, is that her daily chores on the farm seem to have been slowly and steadily growing, so that they take up more of her time, leaving her less leisure for bonding with friends. It's not that Applejack doesn't want to be able to take time off to spend having fun. It's that she's simply had less time to allocate to non-farming related activities of any sort. And let me note here that once again we see how characters can grow. Looking back at how Rarity and Applejack clashed in the first part of Season 1, Look Before You Sleep springs to mind, to see their friendship having grown so solid and comfortable that each of them is lamenting the lost opportunities for their usual weekly get-togethers is quite delightful. Twilight, in true Princess of Friendship fashion, offers to step up and take over at least one of the farm chores so that her two friends can have their spa day, or at least a spa hour. Applejack seems worried. After all, while quite capable, Twilight isn't used to running any aspect of a farm without supervision or direction. But having left a list, Applejack is willing to give it a go, and we're left with Twilight beginning a seemingly simple task: feed the pigs. And while we watch the start of the oddly long list of instructions for this task, the instructions we do see brought into play don't seem immediately inclined to promote porcine nourishment. Meanwhile, back at the spa, a chance encounter with Rainbow Dash sends her fleeing into the afternoon, embarrassed to have her more feminine and indulgent side revealed to her friends. Not that Applejack or Rarity are anything but happily amused at the knowledge that Rainbow Dash has grown to enjoy spa pampering, all of which harkens back to Ponyville Confidential, where we find that all of the main six, save only Rainbow Dash, have become quite at home with the occasional bit of spa pampering, and that Rainbow Dash alone still seemed unsure about the whole thing, mostly because of how it might reflect on her star athlete image. Meanwhile, at the present time, the spa is packed, and the steam room has an absurdly long line. And while Spoiled Rich is indeed the pony at the front of the indulgent pack, it turns out the delay isn't her fault. Rarity, while adopting a much put-upon tone, is quite willing to be flexible, foregoing a steam to dive right into other forms of pampering for the limited time she and AJ have to work with. But Applejack is stubborn and insistent upon her routines. Time spent in the steam room comes first on her list of relaxation, and by goodness she's going to start with time spent in the steam room no matter what. It's interesting to note how that stubbornness and unwillingness to look at changing established routines, even when sticking to the old routine, will drastically reduce the quantity and quality of her pleasant experiences here in the spa, is both entirely within Applejack's character and, as it will ultimately turn out, one of the key conflict drivers of the episode. Applejack backtracks the problem. A small leak with the steam flow led to the growth of a semi-solution, namely the application of hot towels while ponies waited for steam pressure to build up for the spa. But that semi-solution carried with it an unintended consequence of worsening the overall situation, because all of those steamy hot towels needed to come from the laundry room. Said laundry was now using up all the hot water needed for the boilers to produce the steam room steam, meaning longer waits, more cooled ponies, more towels, and yet longer waits. The solution: fix the underlying problem, the small leak that started the whole mess, and leave off all this extra work to treat the symptoms. Applejack muscles through the repairs. Rarity, having given up on spending spa time with Applejack, lets herself be pampered in AJ's busy absence. The spa problems are resolved, but the friendship problem remains. By the time Applejack is done with the repairs and ready to start her quality time with Rarity in the steam room, their hour is up. Rarity, though, can also be quite stubborn when she wants to be. At her urging, the two head back to Sweet Apple Acres to check up on Twilight and, assuming things are going well, to provide more direction so that Applejack and Rarity can return to the spa and enjoy relaxation together, which had been the whole point of the day. Alas, Twilight is still mid-pig feeding, and our return to the farm has us immediately wondering why feeding pigs is such a Mission Impossible-esque task. Noting that Twilight clearly can't manage the established routines, Applejack takes over, and the déjà vu starts to kick in. With growing irony and a strong pot-calling-the-kettle-black speech, Applejack explains to Twilight how the spa ponies had a small problem which, because they didn't initially deal with or even notice the problem itself, managed to spiral into so much unnecessary extra work that this had slowed things down to the point that Rarity and Applejack didn't get to enjoy their hour off, and Applejack just couldn't imagine how such a thing could come to pass. Which was when Twilight and Rarity questioned Applejack's Rube Goldberg-like pig-feeding methodology. Turns out there had been a small problem, and Applejack had adopted a deal-with-it solution until she could get that problem fixed. Only her dealing with it had spawned another little problem, the solution to which had spawned yet another problem, and so on. Sure, Applejack had eventually gone back and fixed the original problem, but by then, the routine had become established, which made Applejack's devotion to the routine of her spa treatments a delightful bit of foreshadowing of the real problems. And while they may have pushed the extremes to which Applejack carried her own inefficiencies, the comedic way in which the episode played it up reduced even that mild criticism to insignificance in my own mind. While I noted it as a possible problem with the episode, it didn't detract from my enjoyment, which for me is the important thing. The solution to Applejack's problems, and the moral of the episode, was that it is good to have friends' assistance in evaluating your projects. A fresh set of eyes may see problems that you yourself have been blinded to due to overfamiliarity with the system. This is another very relatable moment for this episode. And on this finish, complete with the incorporation of even more friends into a fun activity, for back at the spa, Rainbow Dash, her secret exposed, wound up accepting the gentle encouragement of her friends Applejack and Rarity to join them for some group pampering, I found myself feeling quite nostalgic. I have spoken earlier about how Season 6 has begun exploring new and more complex types of storytelling, but this episode, with its relatable friendship conflict, a primary focus on just a few of the main six, and a resolution which contains a nicely Aesop-like moral, could have come straight from the Season 1 playbook. I was impressed to note that not only is Season 6 mixing it up with the stories they're telling, but they're also quite comfortable returning to the show's roots with a polished classic Friendship is Magic style story that is a relaxing pleasure to watch. If you wish to see my full reaction to My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 6, Episode 10, titled Applejack's Day Off, the link, as I mentioned earlier, is in the description. Feel free to leave any comments or likes for that reaction here on this Afterthoughts review. And until next time, as always, kindly remember, y'all are awesome. Stay awesome.